Welcome to the Daily Globe. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon for more breaking updates. The world is holding its breath, gripped by a sense of anticipation and uncertainty. All eyes are on the U.S. Supreme Court as it prepares to rule on President Trump's sweeping tariffs, a landmark decision that could fundamentally reshape the landscape of global trade and international relations. This is far more than a legal battle. It's a high-stakes test of presidential authority and the delicate, often invisible threads that bind the world's economies together. At stake are $80 billion in tariffs, the stability of global supply chains that keep goods moving across continents, and the price of everyday goods that millions rely on, from groceries to electronics. The Trump administration insists these tariffs are essential to protect American industries, safeguard jobs, and defend national security interests. But critics warn that such aggressive measures could spark global retaliation, disrupt markets, and plunge the world into economic uncertainty. The central question before the court: has the president overstepped his legal boundaries, or is this within the scope of executive power? The outcome will ripple through businesses, consumers, and workers, not just in America, but across the globe, and could challenge the very rules-based trading system painstakingly built after World War II to promote peace and prosperity. As the world watches, this pivotal moment will help define the future of global commerce, setting precedents for generations to come. In this video, we'll break down the legal fight, the potential economic fallout, and the far-reaching consequences of the court's decision, exploring what's truly at stake for families, businesses, and nations everywhere. The gavel is about to fall, and its echo will be heard in every corner of the world, shaping the future in ways we can only begin to imagine. To understand the current crisis, we need to look beyond the headlines and examine the legal framework that shapes America's trade policy. Trade law in the United States is a complex web of statutes, executive powers, and judicial oversight, all of which play a crucial role in how the government responds to global economic challenges. At the heart of the recent tariff battles are the legal tools that allow the president to impose sweeping economic measures, sometimes with little warning or debate. These tools have been used in unprecedented ways in recent years, especially during the Trump administration. The main law in question is the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEPA. This act gives the president broad authority to regulate trade and financial transactions after declaring a national emergency, often bypassing the usual legislative process. Originally, IEPA was designed to address threats from hostile foreign powers, but its use has expanded over time. Critics argue that invoking IEPA for economic slowdowns or trade disputes stretches the law's original intent. They point out that it was meant as a tool for national security, not as a catch-all for broad economic policy. This debate has become especially heated as the scope of presidential power has grown. Two other key laws are also at play. Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act, which allows tariffs in the name of national security, and Section 301 of the Trade Act, which targets unfair trade practices by specific countries, such as China. These statutes have been central to recent trade wars and negotiations. Together, these laws give the president sweeping power to act quickly and decisively, often bypassing Congress and traditional checks on executive authority. This has led to concerns about the balance of power in government. But this concentration of authority is now under Supreme Court scrutiny, raising fundamental questions about the limits of executive power and the role of the judiciary in maintaining checks and balances. The court's upcoming ruling could either reaffirm the president's sweeping powers over trade, or it could sharply limit them, reshaping the future of American trade policy and the separation of powers for years to come. The legal battle began when businesses sued, arguing Trump's tariffs under IEPA exceeded presidential authority. A lower court agreed, ruling the tariffs illegal and opening the door to $80 billion in refunds. The administration appealed, insisting the president needs broad discretion in national security and economic crises. Now the Supreme Court will decide: does the president have near unlimited power to declare economic emergencies, or are there limits? The outcome will set a precedent for presidential authority and the future of U.S. trade policy. The stakes couldn't be higher. Despite the looming Supreme Court case, the Trump administration has doubled down, announcing new tariffs in September 2025. A 10% tariff on imported lumber will hit construction and housing, while a 25% tariff on furniture and cabinets will raise costs for consumers. These tariffs are set to escalate, creating long-term uncertainty for businesses. President Trump has even threatened tariffs on all foreign-made furniture and a 100% tariff on international movies, a dramatic expansion into cultural goods. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick has expanded tariffs to hundreds of downstream products, keeping importers off balance. Domestic producers can now petition for new tariffs, adding to the unpredictability. The administration's strategy: keep pressure high and force manufacturing back to the U.S. The message is clear: tariffs are here to stay. The White House's response to the Supreme Court challenge? Defiance. Trade advisor Peter Navarro warns that overturning the tariffs would threaten U.S. sovereignty and industry. Behind the scenes, officials are shifting legal strategy, moving away from IEEPA to statutes like Section 232 and Section 301, which are harder to challenge in court. New investigations target industries like semiconductors and pharmaceuticals, laying groundwork for more tariffs justified by national security. Even if the court rules against them, the administration is ready to pivot and keep tariffs in place. Businesses and allies can't count on a return to normal. Protectionism is the new normal. The administration is playing a long game, determined to maintain its trade agenda. The chilling effect on global trade is already being felt. The tariff war unfolds against a backdrop of economic contradictions. Wall Street is booming, with record highs and strong GDP growth, but inflation is reaccelerating, driven in part by new tariffs. The Federal Reserve has cut interest rates, signaling concern about rising prices and a weakening job market. While some industries gain from protection, others, especially manufacturers and farmers, face higher costs and lost markets. For families, the impact is direct: higher prices for homes, furniture, and everyday goods. The tariffs act as a hidden tax, creating uncertainty and distorting the economy. Economists warn that the long-term effects could outweigh any short-term gains. America's tariff strategy has left allies and rivals in a state of uncertainty. The EU, UK, and Japan are temporarily exempt, but their status is precarious, dependent on the Supreme Court's decision and future US actions. Allies must prepare for possible tariffs while trying to maintain good relations with Washington. China, the main target, continues to retaliate and seeks to reduce its reliance on the US. The rules-based global trading system is eroding, replaced by unpredictability and economic nationalism. Multinational companies are rethinking investments and supply chains. The constant threat of new tariffs is a tax on the global economy. Instability is becoming the new normal. Policy analysts see the administration's actions as a calculated pivot to ensure tariffs survive, no matter the court's ruling. Tariffs under IEEPA were broad. Now, Section 232 and Section 301 allow for more targeted, disruptive measures, especially under the guise of national security. If IEEPA is struck down, the administration will likely use Section 301 for country-specific tariffs, keeping the America First agenda alive. This approach turns a global trade war into a series of targeted skirmishes, harder to challenge and more sustainable politically. The Supreme Court case matters, but the administration's multi-layered legal strategy means protectionism will persist. For businesses and governments, uncertainty is the new normal. The legal battlefield is shifting, but the trade war isn't ending. We stand at a historic crossroads, one where the decisions made today will echo for generations to come. In this moment, a single Supreme Court decision could fundamentally reshape not only global commerce, but also the very nature of presidential power in the United States. The case before the court forces us to confront difficult questions that reach far beyond legal technicalities. What are the true limits of presidential authority in a world that is more interconnected and more divided than ever before? Can the intricate web of global trade survive the rising tide of nationalism and protectionist sentiment sweeping across nations? Over the past year, we have witnessed escalating tariffs, mounting economic uncertainty, and alliances that once seemed unbreakable now showing signs of strain. The administration's strategy to Supreme Court proof, its policies means that the legal and political battles over trade are far from over. No matter what verdict the court delivers, the trade battle will continue to shape our economy and our place in the world. This is a pivotal time for citizens, business leaders, and policymakers alike to pause and reflect. We must consider not only the immediate impacts, but also the long-term costs of protectionism and isolation. At stake is the value of global cooperation and the potential for nations to work together for shared prosperity. The Supreme Court's decision will mark the beginning of a new chapter in our ongoing story, but the final verdict will ultimately be written by history and by the actions we choose to take in response. The choices we make now, as individuals and as a society, will determine the path forward for generations. The responsibility to shape that future, to defend the rule of law, and foster global cooperation, rests with all of us.